Skylight washed Commander Leona Ortiz's visor in pale silver as her cockpit canopy irised open to the vacuum. Beyond the glimmering shield of her microfield, Alexandria Inex filled half the view, an ocean-blue orb wrapped in nightside thunderheads, every continent bright with the webwork glow of archived data silos. It was the richest library world in 3 galaxies, and for 7 grinding months it had been sieged by the nebular dominion. Leona flexed her tethered gloves, feeling the synthetic tendons of her haptic suit echo movements in the Nova Lance pinned to the keel beneath her feet. The craft was little more than a column of gravitic coils surrounding a razor-narrow antimatter spike, but it could accelerate from 0 to 10% light speed in 30 heartbeats and punch a corridor through warship armor like butter on a forge plate. "Squadron Mach status," she said, voice tight with ritual calm that always preceded detonation velocity combat. "2 hot," came Lieutenant Hu's reply. "3 hot. 4 hot." A chorus of confirmations followed until all 16 units had checked in. Earth's very first antimatter Lancer Squadron, Task Force Dawnstreak. Waited in the dark between Roche debris, the last sliver of stillness they were likely to know. Admiral Renuka's command frequency crackled. "Dawnstreak, Dominion perimeter is tightening. Their picket sensors sweep again in 60 seconds. Your vector corridor is green but collapsing. Punch now or lose surprise." "Copy," Leona answered. Her eyes flicked to a hovering holograph that projected the blockade ring. 60-plus Dominion frigates, 9 cruisers, 4 carrier wedges, and the dreadnought Sable Crucible in Polar Station. Waldo-class particle nets overlapped like fan blades, each designed to slag anything larger than a courier drone. Unfortunately for the Dominion, Lancers were smaller than courier drones until they fired. Leona exhaled. "All craft, on my ping, burn thrusters in 5, 4, 3, 2, mark." 16 microflares winked to life, blue needle lips pushing the squadron into a falling diver's spiral. They were angled to slip through a seam between 2 sweep radars that overlapped only once every orbit, a cartographer's glitch discovered by a team of graduate interns in Quito. Somewhere behind Leona's larynx, a laugh tried to form at that absurdity. Billions of Allied soldiers on the front, and the fate of the library world hinged on a student math error. But humor died in the roar of acceleration. E-forces pressed her against the carbon cradle. Her bones vibrated with the siren hum of near-relativistic laminar flow. At 80 kilometers, the squadron's transponders went dark. At 50, the Lances deployed their magnetospines, shaping fields tight as scalpel edges. Then the Dominion saw them. Threat glyphs stamped themselves across Leona's vision. Point-dench cannons blossomed on the hulls of the ring ships, a carnival of ruby motes converging on Dawnstreak's path. Static sparkled against her eardrums as Hu cursed in Cantonese. The squadron's encrypted mesh spat casualty projections. 87% non-survival if they stayed on current line for more than 12 seconds. "Shift Delta 9, Leona barked, and collectively they snapped an angle sideways, momentum still plunging planetward. Blister fire chased them, a conical storm of ionizing tracer. 2 Lancers vaporized, their antimatter cores going off like silent camera flashes. Shockwaves rippled the void, jostling Leona's craft with phantom fists. For the first time in combat, she tasted fear as a physical flavor. Not for herself, ever Lancer accepted a single-use fate, but for the mission. Alexandria Nix's planetary shield was beginning to fail. Once it fell, the Dominion planned to memory strip 5 million years of recorded history, delete half, and rewrite the rest. Historians call that horizon cultural zeroing. Leona keyed her thrusters into overburn. Her Novalance screamed. The hull temperature spiked 100 degrees, coolant vapors vented in azure streamers. Ahead, the Sable Crucible rotated lazy as a leviathan uncoiling. Its graviton projector was powering up, meaning they had less than a minute before it hurled a spall wave that would shear proton bonds like tissue. Lieutenant Hu's voice again, quieter. Commander, the corridor's closing. Recommend we go active. Going active meant uncloaking the full antimatter lance, firing it as a spear of annihilation energy that would blow a tunnel clean through the blockade, but also detonate any Dominion plasma mines in its path, turning the route into a goulash of expanding fusion pockets. It was a gamble between certain destruction and maybe survival. Leona switched to squadron-wide prime lances. Arm on my mark. She counted down from 3. At 0, they thumbed safeties, opening magnetic caskets adjacent to their cores. Micrograms of chilled antimatter, the cost of small cities, slid into staging chambers. Her mouth dried. One spark of stray static, a cough in a circuit, and she'd become a brief second sun. The blockade ring filled her forward scope. Dominion ships adjusted orientation, shielding their flagship. They thought the Lancers wanted a kill count. They didn't understand the objective. Good. Mark, she said. 6-meter rods of incorporeal white erupted from 14 surviving Nova Lances. Matter's mirror opposite met the ordinary vacuum, turning nanograms into gigajoules. The energy front became a trumpet flare, a radiation tongue that chewed sensors, ripped hulls, and boiled minds without ever truly touching them. And because physics abhors privilege, every action demanded equal counterforce. The Lancer craft hit backwash, decelerating violently. Shields quavered, bones compressed. Leona screamed but kept her eyes open, guiding the beam like a harpoon shot by a thunder god. In its wake, a corridor of nearly matterless space yawned. Mines gone, airless plasma diffusing. The Dominion line lay shredded, their point defense software blind from EMP overpressure. "Throttle to surface," Leona gasped. They dove. 1 minute remained before their cores reached destabilization threshold. The entire doctrine of antimatter cavalry assumed pilots would jettison after firing. Ships became darts with tips snapped off. Parachuting down continents of enemy-held air was not ideal, but Dawnstreak's plan was stranger. As they fell, the Lancers nosed inside one another's wake, interlocking magnetic fields to stitch a larger envelope. Their composite bubble glimmered platinum as residual annihilation energy bled into it. To any Dominion scope, the 14 objects now looked like melting debris, trash not worth more ammo. They punched atmospheric entry at 19 kilometers per second. Purple friction fire licked exteriors. Ablative tiles liquefied into neon rain. The bubble wobbled but held. Below, the Alexandrian capital plateau spread peach gold under dawn. Pyramids of crystal data stacks pierced thin clouds. Already Leona saw brown and black scars where orbital strafing had kissed the shield dome. If they were too late. "Cupola Control, this is Dawnstreak." She prayed the planet's defense grid still had ears. "We're bringing you a sunrise." Static. Then, ragged but alive. "Dawnstreak, Cupola copies. Shield grid partial. Transmitting safe drop latitudes." Coordinates populated her display. Librarian Spire 12, Node Juniper. It lay on the night side terminator, where ground-based Dominion forces probed a weak undercarriage of the shield. Their intention was obvious: physical incursion once orbital assets broke the remainder. "Squadron, prep, evac." She clamped both palms to the ejection pads on her armrests. "See you on the ground." Ejection at Mach 20 felt like being gut-punched by a god. Her seat became a sled. Parachutes were nonsense at that speed, so the harness unleashed micrograv sails. Wafer-thin sheets that luffed electrons into foam. Drag multiplied, chewing velocity to survivable rates before the sails disintegrated by design. She tumbled through sizzling clouds, suit jets firing bursts to right her. At 2,000 meters, a final grav jet cushioned descent, and she landed amid juniper shrubs, dusted with violet snow. Helmet seals hissed. She tasted real air, cold, pine-spiced thin from altitude. Her boots sank into permafrost. Around her, other Dawnstreak pilots flared in, exosuits catching, rolling, then popping upright. 14 had left orbit. 11 now stood breathing. Not bad odds for the first human charge of the Antimatter cavalry. The plateau's horizon flashed. A Dominion lander disgorged bipedal warframes, each bristling lasers. They stalked toward a stepped pyramidal structure whose surface shimmered with fractal glyphs. Spire 12. Leona keyed her squadron channel. Objective: keep the spire intact until shield nodes restore. Exhaust every resource. Wu jogged up, rifle already snicked open. Commander, our packs carry only 15 minutes of juice and half that in ammo. Then we've got 15 minutes. They advanced. Earth Marines decades ago had dubbed Alexandria Nyx God's Library, but here on the ground, it felt more like a temple made of orchid-colored glass. Light refracted inside walls, swirling like captured galaxies. Every etched panel recorded civilizations so long gone, no one remembered their shapes, only their mathematics. And now Dominion soldiers were walking infernos at its foot, burning memory away. Leona raised her coil rifle. The first volley crackled through dusk, stitching holes in the lead warsham's armor. Its counterfire lanced past sizzling rock. Planetside combat felt slow compared to orbital. She used the breathing room to look for structural weaknesses, but the frames were built heavy. Hugh lobbed a micro-nuke, really a fusion grenade the size of a pear, into their midst. A starburst glare erupted, flattening 3 frames beneath plasma tide. The spire shield shimmered. Alexandria's planetary field might be failing, but local microshields still flared upon direct danger, buying them seconds. Seconds. Leona dashed, weaving, trusting her suit to track trajectories. She reached a plinth where Dominion sappers had set demolition blocks. Her wrist blade flicked out. She ripped wires, tossed the explosives beyond the parapet. They detonated mid-air, showers of cobalt sparks. Her squadron was losing numbers again. Trooper Kalla fell to a Gauss round. Armor split open. Private Ose fired straight into a frame's cockpit viewport, killing pilot and machine at once. It became a slaughterhouse waltz. Knowledge against deletion, life against unmaking. In the lull between fusillades, a voice boomed through amplifiers so large it sounded like the sky's own throat. Commander Ortiz of Sol, you are brave but misguided. Relinquish the spire and I will grant exile passage for your squadron. She recognized the accentless calm. Archon Veyron, Dominion Fleetmaster, the butcher who'd glassed Delphi Station and stamped out the coral libraries of Phaistos. Somewhere overhead, his dreadnought still hung, maybe nursing scars from the lance burst. Leona cupped her helmet plates. Archon, the spire isn't ours to relinquish. It belongs to time. You can't negotiate with history. Silence. Then a click. Very well. You will become footnotes. The ground quaked. From the far tree line lumbered something monstrous, an exojocknaut, 8 stories tall, carrying a spinal projector built to crack city walls. Flares along its barrel told her what type. A grav shear gun. One shot could implode the spire's anti-mass foundations, making it collapse into itself. Her rifle felt like a toy. 11 humans, some grenades, 1 library world. Hug spoke quietly beside her. Commander, our antimatter cores. They had ejected with minimal mass, but standard procedure made every pilot carry a containment flask with the residual antimatter sliver left after lance discharge. In theory, it would be surrendered for study. In practice, Leona checked gauges, 0.004 milligrams inside her flask. Enough to level the plateau. She met Hu's eyes through helmet glass, saw her own thought mirrored. If the spire must fall, better by our hands preserving nothing than by theirs rewriting everything. But maybe there was another use. Get me an uplink to cupola control, she ordered. Say, patched, the librarian authority responded. Voice that of a tired elder. Commander, we see the juggernaut. Nodular shield strength 12%. Buying you 90 seconds. Is the spire's archive vault still network-lengthed? As of 5 minutes ago, yes. Then nobody fire until I say. She sprinted into the spire's portico. Prism walls parted like living crystal, inside corridors lit by bioluminescent motes stretched out in radial rings. She ran past aisles of levitating codices, stasis urns, quantum hololiths. At last she entered the hard chamber, a cylindrical space containing a singular console shaped like a harp. She pressed her palm. Authentication 0. Protocol recognized. Allied command. Opening librarian superuser. Data floodgates shimmered. Leona inhaled. Cupola. I request emergency ephemeral duplication. A gasp. Commander, that procedure has never been completed on Spire scale. Do it anyway. Ephemeral duplication was an insane technology the Elixirs had kept secret. Convert compressed metadata of entire libraries into a quantum-linked tachyon pulse. Fire it at entangled receptor buoys anywhere in the cosmos. A last-ditch backup. It required an energy spike the size of a small fusion sun. Such spikes were exactly what Antimatter provided. She yanked her containment flask from belt. Say, anyone. I need the other 10 slivers. Pilots dashed in, laying flasks on the harp console. Together they amounted maybe 0.04 milligrams, laughably little by weapon standards, yet enough for a photonic miracle. The librarian's voice quavered. Pulse receptor coordinates? Leona recalled a lecture hall map from cadet years. Target: UNESCO Vault, Athena, Luna Farside. On the surface, the Juggernaut leveled its cannon, whose timer feed counted 60 seconds. Inside, Leona slotted flasks into an energy matrix, magnetic clamps ready. She keyed the harp strings. Blue lines raced across the chamber floor, converging under the vault. Alexandria's central memory core began to hum as if an angel choir had gone underground. The librarian whispered, 30% buffer, 50, 75. Commander, once the pulse leaves, we'll need minutes to decouple banks, or the recoil could shatter them. We don't have minutes. Outside, Dominion forces advanced, despite covering fire from the remaining human pilots. The Juggernaut dug its feet, projector whining into lethal resonance. Coppola, prepare to decouple anyway. 85%. Leona turned to her pilots. Pull back to the anteroom and seal door 3. If anything goes wrong, charge uphill to the ridge, and don't look back. Nobody moved. You just said, make it quick. 97. Archon Veyron opened comms again, sounding irritated. Ortiz, last chance. She ignored him. The buffer hit 100. Kapyala, fire! She slammed the release. The antimatter slivers touched matter electrodes. White fire blossomed, funneled by accelerator throats into a singularity of photonic surge. It shot upward through diamond conduits, out the spire's apex, punching the fragile planetary shield like a camera flash through smoke. Orbitals picked it up, a tachyon-laden spindle of information, every bit of Spire 12 screaming across subspace toward Luna. Recoil ripped the chamber apart, crystal buttresses splintered. Shockwaves chased Leona back through collapsing hallways. She skidded across fracturing tiles, caught by you at the anteroom threshold. Behind them, the spire seemed to inhale. Walls bent inward, then outward, then snapped to quiescent stillness. The antimatter's annihilation had self-normalized once the pulse channeled most of the energy. The archive's physical shell, though cracked, still stood. Outside, the Juggernaut's projector cut loose, but its beam washed over the spire's skin and faded. Cupola Control cried exultantly, Vault integrity at 60%. Shield nodes rebounding. The antimatter pulse had provided exactly the jolt needed to reboot Alexandria's planetary grid. Invisible domes respawned across firmament. Orbital vantage confirmed. Dominion ships collided with an unexpectedly restored energy curtain, many shearing apart. Archon Veyron's dreadnought reeled as remaining lancers in orbit but furious harassed it. Dawnstreak's initial corridor meant Allied fleets could now micro-jump into low orbit, guns blazing. Leona stumbled outside, helmet cracked but pressure holding. She beheld Dawn's second coming. Allied task groups flickering into vacuum, auroras of point defense, painting pastel death across the sky. Dominion craft broke formation, Retreat signals pinged. Who laughed? A wild, joyous sound. She clapped Leona's armored shoulder. History's safe, at least one chapter. Osei, bleeding from a grazed arm, added, "And Earth's first Lancer Squadron just wrote it." Fiona looked up at the damaged spire. Cracks glowed, yet the interior lights pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat refusing to fail. Within its databanks lived the songs of extinct whales, the coordinates of lost nebulae, the diary of the last Martian beekeeper, now duplicated in Luna's vault where Dominion hands could never erase them. Admiral Renuka's voice hailed ground forces. "Cupola reports Dominion retreat vector. Alexandria is secure. Dawnstreak status, Leona key transmitter. 11 down here, Admiral. A little banged, but operational. Spire 12 pulse succeeded. Request extraction before I start philosophizing about the universe." Renuka chuckled. "Shuttles inbound. You've done the impossible." The plateau wind carried the scent of ionized sap and newborn sunlight. Leona let herself sag to one knee. For the first time since launch, she could feel the weight of everything she wore, the ache of everything she'd lost. Pilots who weren't coming back, seconds of life bartered for knowledge. Yet in that ache, there was something solid and bright, like the first page of a new logbook. She tapped her helmet, brought up a recording subroutine, and spoke softly. For whoever would study the day's events centuries forward, it records the moment when antimatter met oblivion and chose memory instead. Around her, the surviving pilots raised their visors to sunrise. Above them, Dominion wreckage traced silver comets across the morning. And beyond that, hidden in quantum folds, a pulse of Alexandria's story sped toward Luna, singing to itself across impossible night.